Jets. Jets.
It was a Mike White savior game that everyone was looking for.
Mike. Mike. No, he's just Mike.
It was so Mike White went for more yards than Zach Wilson had in the last two games. Elijah Moore, I think, either caught his first passing touchdown of the year, or at least his second or third.
Yeah,
probably first one since week 2 because
he was gloating with his body language,
because Zach Wilson seems to every time he gets on the football field forget that Elijah Moore exists, to the point where Elijah Moore wanted to be off the team.
Okay, Elijah Moore though, dude, it's just you're not Randy Moss. Let's not.
Oh no, of course, but I mean in the sense, I think at some point you're like, why is he throwing to a rookie over me?
I totally get it. I still don't I still find it a tad distasteful that the Jets receivers are so public about everything.
I also think
when they're a good team, this stuff should not be in the media.
But I'm sure that also goes to show you how annoying it must be to
You're right.
play with this guy.
You're right.
But this is just kind of my point with, because listen, I'm really not taking a whole lot away from this game, only because, one, I don't see a future with Mike White as the quarterback of this team, and two, it was against a Bears defense that was pretty beat up going into it, lost a few guys during the game, and is one of the worst units in the league, and Trevor Siemian was on the other side of the ball. So these were pretty plum circumstances for a get-right game for the skill position guys and the defense, and White simply just played serviceable football. He threw to open receivers when they were open. He went through his reads. His feet stayed on the ground. He didn't drop back to the end zone from the 50-yard line, and he didn't scramble to the left when there was in a clean pocket. He just did normal NFL quarterback guy things.
Yeah.
And
I mean, Mike White, certainly a normal quarterback name. And he has no skill set that stands out to you.
No, he is
Mike White.
He's the most average quarterback you could ever watch.
Yeah.
And I think saying all that, the point for me is that this just goes to show what this Jets team would look like against even a bad team like the Bears with a high floor quarterback. Meaning that a guy who just, the fundamentals are sound enough to just get through simple elementary quarterback concepts and quarterback skills.
Mm-hmm.
And Zach Wilson, his biggest problem for me is the opposite thing, which is that he has a lot of his skills or a lot of his assets are tantalizing. He's fast. He has a big arm. He's shifty. He can play out of structure. The problem is his floor is in the basement because he can't do the simple things. And he still has not shown an ability to improve upon being able to do the simple things. So seeing a guy like this, an undrafted quarterback who is not particularly good, just be a competent plus quarterback on the field with this really, I would say, extremely promising, talented group on both sides of the ball, you just wonder what this would be if Zach Wilson wasn't the option.
It sucks because, as you say, right? How do you know? I understand. Joe Douglas has done a great job loading up that talent with roster. I mean, you feel that way, right?
Oh my God, I think truly the only weak spot across the board is who's playing quarterback.
But that's the thing is Joe Douglas also drafted him in the sense that what you say is that his physical skill set was very worthy of being the second overall pick. I truly feel that way. I mean, the problem is that maybe he's a spoiled brat. But
that's also why I said that Zach's progress relative to the team. I mean, if the team still plays well, it doesn't matter. But if Zach is the anchor that keeps this team where they are, that it unfortunately will reflect on this regime for drafting him where they did, because he was the biggest swing they took in the draft. But I don't think they're out on him. I don't think they've given up hope on him, and I don't think that he is done just yet. But I think seeing this, I think he just needs to start performing and start performing fast. Mm-hmm. And he needs to tune up a little bit at the coming press conferences, so he stops being the topic of conversation that has nothing to do with how he plays on the field.
What I do respect about Saleh is that, yes, this could kill his confidence, right? But he's so much of a guy that guys want to play for as a coach that he wasn't going to let that get in the way of like, no, the team is going to revolt right now. People are really pissed about how he handled himself, how he played as well. And he needs a chance to reset. And like, I mean, what is fascinating about this situation is that he felt that so strongly, Bradley, that he had to bench him when this could have been the perfect get right game for Zach
Oh,
Wilson.
100%. That's I think the big
Bears
argument.
defense is so bad.
That's I think the one interesting thing is that if I would understand it more if they were going to play like the Eagles or something, where it's like, okay, like maybe just like don't lead him into the slaughter right after all of this. If he hadn't benched him, I really wouldn't have batted an eyelash, only because as bad as the play has been, there have been games that were comparably bad where they didn't bench him before. I thought like I was saying last week, I thought the first Patriots game was just as bad. I thought the Broncos game was just as bad. But I guess they just really wanted to, send a message.
But those three defenses are
so much better.
Very good. I mean, the
and I think that's
Patriots
what
defense,
I think that's also what we have to measure it too, is that Mike White, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Zach Wilson had played a similarly bad defense as Mike White had against the Bears. So this is partially why, for me at least, I can't speak necessarily, obviously, for what Robert Saleh wants to do going forward. But I wouldn't necessarily see this performance and be like, yeah, we should just keep starting Mike White.
Yeah.
Let's see how he looks against the Patriots again or the Bills again, for example, or something like that. I just don't see it that way.
Wilson played and beat the Steelers without
Steelers defense, I would say, is still definitely, even without Watt, Alex Highsmith, one of the league leaders in sacks, or was at least in the middle of the season, still probably would take that defense over the Bears defense.
Destroyed the Dolphins, the game that you were at, but that's because they had Skylar Thompson in a quarterback.
And still think the Dolphins defense is probably better than
above average.
Yeah, than the Bears.
I mean, they just put the smackdown on the Texans, but who isn't going to do that?
Exactly.
Then Green Bay won in Green Bay.
Definitely Packers defense is better.
Again, though, Zach Wilson threw for 110 yards that game.
That's
the previous
the other thing, almost in spite of him.
He threw 252 yards, 210 yards, 110 against the Green Bay Packers, 121 against the Denver Broncos, 355 in the loss in New England at home versus New England, 17 points.
Still both Broncos pass defense is better than the Bears.
Buffalo won.
Yep, Buffalo definitely better.
And then, the Patriots again.
So that all that is to say for me is as I think this does prove to me that the issue is the floor for him, but that he had a very difficult slate of defenses to face while he's still very clearly figuring out certain things.
Figuring out, yes, his fundamentals, how to play the position, and how to conduct himself as a professional. And I think that confluence of factors just was Saleh said, "Hey, we're a playoff team. I can't afford to figure this out on the fly with this guy."
Right. So that's I think exactly it, is that the Jets have been overperforming to the point where they actually kind of can't be patient about this right now.
Right.
So we'll see what happens next. We'll see what the call is this week.
I feel like Mike White starts until he loses.
Yeah. I could see that too, especially if he beats a good team.
Well, and then what's so unfortunate for Zach Wilson, and I don't necessarily have sympathy for him based on how he's acted, but the defense the teams down the stretch, it's a little easier, in terms of defenses. At Minnesota in a dome. Yep. Minnesota defense
not great.
Very good. They will have to keep up with the offense,
yes,
but
for sure.
Then at Buffalo, that'll be a little tougher.
Yes,
versus Detroit in a dome.
Yep.
In Detroit.
Bad defense.
Versus Jacksonville on Thursday Night Football.
Okay defense.
At Seattle. Bad defense. At Miami.
Okay defense. Yeah, so the big test, I think, will be the Buffalo game. If he's still starting by that point.
Yeah.
But
yeah.